All right, everybody, welcome back to Beans No Ball here for our 8th edition of Bean Talk. As you know, we keep it at this new setup. It probably won't be staying here for long. Obviously, the semester's wrapping up. We're gonna be out of here for a bit, but hopefully later we'll be able to be back. Before, let's just start this up, and obviously let's get into, I guess, one of the big news that we kind of just got into. We were talking about this morning. It's obviously a former number one pick in David Carr from the Texans, Derek Carr's brother. He definitely has some interesting comments to say about the Eagles quarterback situation, which, I mean, I don't really think it's any warranted. I guess I don't know if you want to open this up.
Yeah, honestly, this was a couple days ago. I think it was Tuesday, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, he said something about, I guess Hurts not being that. Basically, summing up, he just said Hurts isn't at that caliber position right now, and I guess something about an injury all of a sudden to make him be healthy, and that Mariota should get the start and move forward with them until wait till Hurts is actually ready to actually lead the team. Which okay, look, I kind of skimmed it a little bit in our recap, but to me, I think this is kind of stupid. I mean, we've seen multiple times, Mariota. I mean, look, Mariota, he had potential to be.
Forget what Mariota is right now. I mean, look, it was one mediocre game.
It was just one bad game against a really good team.
Okay, he had a bad game against a really good team at the Niners, but I mean, we're not having conversations of the Cowboys should be starting Rush.
I know I had my little scuffle on that when we lost, but obviously I had my little shit
recency
about that.
bias is a big thing in the NFL, and you look at okay, he did have a horrible game. Let's just get out the way. I wouldn't say horrible, but it was definitely away from the standards that we expect from Jalen Hurts. But think about it here. I mean, it's Mariota for the first point that you got to look at. Forget about the potential he had, everything that we did think from him. I mean, let's just look at in the present right now. The time that he spent in Atlanta, he's not good. He wasn't ready. I mean, he was benched for Desmond Ritter, who even he was.
He's not even doing well.
That's the point. He's probably one of a bottom 5 starting quarterback in this league. No disrespect to him, but it is the level that he is playing right now. And we look at Jalen Hurts. He's led this team. Apart from this Niners game, he's only lost one game, which was a very questionable game at that. But he's been in the MVP conversations. Yeah, and it's very interesting to see a quarterback who is one of the biggest busts in David Carr to be trying to talk about the type of situation that an MVP level quarterback in Jalen Hurts can be, because that's a lot of things that we've kind of been seeing. I've actually been seeing a lot in different comment sections where these busts get the entitlement to start talking about big name guys, like obviously David Carr and
Dan Orlovsky has some horrible takes here and there as well. Honestly, it's just I don't know why they think they would do. Honestly, they're big up there. They're big analysts. They can say whatever they want. Look, maybe this could have just been some mini publicity stuff for views. But I'm if it was players like Peyton Manning, Tom Brady, Dan Marino, Steve Young, Troy Aikman, those high caliber quarterbacks from that time, if they were to say a statement like this, they'll still get overlooked at because it's still a pretty stupid statement to make. But maybe they'll sense it in their way because they're actually a really good quarterback.
They know what they're talking about.
They would know what they're speaking about. That success, a lot of playoff runs, Super Bowls, all that, and in David Carr's case, he's the complete opposite of that. I mean, his tenure with the Texans, it was very, very horrible. It was bad. I don't know what else you can describe it horrible. I don't even know what's past horrible at that point, but it was bad. For him to make these comments like that against Jalen Hurts. So yes, you could still make the argument for MVP caliber. This and that.
I mean, a lot of people are saying a game like this did drop him out, but I mean, take it back to the argument with Dak. I mean, look how he had. I mean, a lot of people were talking about him after that Niners game, and look at him right now. I mean, apart from Purdy, he is by far, in my opinion, the front runner for MVP, and he should be because I mean, we look at how much. I mean, I already went over this enough in the recap. Purdy gets carried a lot, and that's why you definitely got to see it's who's most valuable to their team, and heavily. I mean, if we're talking about most valuable player, then that's another thing because of how
his weapons, the team stacked, and all
I mean, forget just the teams, the team stuff. I mean, if we're talking about who's most valuable, let's start talking about how the MVP is such a quarterback heavy award.
And
if it wasn't that, it would be Tyreek Hill and CMC.
And obviously, speaking of MVP, let's transition to the next thing too is the front runners of the MVP race, and as we're talking about Purdy and Dak and Jalen, I mean, realistically, like how you're talking about right now, the MVP is who is the most valuable to the team, and realistically, it's Dak Prescott, obviously, and I'll let you get to that, but realistic, I just went into, it's the most valuable quarterback. Let's just get that out the way. MVP is basically the quarterback.
If we're being realistic, I mean, the MVP would have been wide receiver the last 3 years if we're really talking about who's most valuable to their team. But at the end of the day, I mean, we know the quarterback bias in here, and if we're really going to be talking about who's the most valuable quarterback, it's easily Dak Prescott right now.
Yeah, because he is the most valuable asset to the team. I mean, Purdy, yes, he's valuable, but realistically, you could make them like Debo and all the weapons he has, Ayuk, and then that defense, there's a lot of valuable pieces of that 49ers team. Same goes with all teams. I can make the same thing with the Cowboys. We have a lot of valuable pieces in the team. Trayvon Diggs, we saw that Cardinals game that really stepped up. Deron Bland stepped up, had that one horrible game against Seattle, but obviously overlooked that. A lot of valuable pieces, but when we really look at it, on my unbiased
opinion. Well, if we're going to talk about, how valuable they are to the team, I think you really got to just keep the defensive side of it out, because if we're going to talk about just offensive, I mean, it doesn't matter. I mean, let's talk about a team that has a number one defense like the Browns. It doesn't matter. I mean, they're the level that their defense plays isn't going to give us the argument, Joe Flacco or Dorian Thompson-Robinson's going to sneak into
because their quarterback situation is just all over the place. And with Dak, him being the quarterback, obviously you would assume that, the quarterback always the most.
That's what you look at. You have teams where, both sides of the ball are firing on all cylinders. And sure, the Cowboys defense, that's its own argument. They are obviously one of the top defenses in the league at this point. But it's also the offense, and we see how Dak has really grown as a passer and as just as a quarterback in general. I mean, you can say, he has CD Lamb and obviously, one of the top receivers in the league there. But I mean, he's been able to command this team so well, and that's why you show that his presence is something. Because you probably think, I mean, you switch Dak Prescott and Brock Purdy, the Niners are probably undefeated right now, if we're gonna keep it honest.
Yeah, there's a lot of hypothetical situation, a lot of what ifs. I know, just little shits and giggles, Justin Herbert. We talk about a lot of what ifs with him, but yeah, if we were to swap those
two, confident wide receiver core, the Chargers would be insane.
Yeah, it's just coaching, but yeah, if we were to realistically swap the place of Purdy and Dak, even bringing Hurts, Niners could potentially be undefeated. Same with Philly, but prime example is in 2020 when we lost Dak. He was extremely important to that. I mean, when he went down against the Giants, and obviously my respect to Andy Dalton, he did try. We did make a push, beating Philadelphia in that week. I think it was the week 16 game. Beating him in that week 6, beating them in that 116 did help our playoff chance alive. All we had to do was beat the Giants, which we did.
Okay, so that was like 15 then.
Yeah,
the Giants was the second last week.
Yeah. So obviously with all that, he was, he tried, and obviously losing Dak was a really big loss to us in that offense, and all the injuries and that really horrible historic defense that we had as best. But 2020 really showed that, and then the next game with the Commanders, that really showed again that Dak Prescott is very valuable to this team. The Cowboys are not going to go anywhere without Dak Prescott.
And when you bring up, how valuable he is to the team, let's go back to 2020. You see, they lose Prescott, and look how much they ended up struggling. The Niners lose Purdy. Well, they
lost Purdy in the championship game.
You thought, they lost Purdy, and I mean that hurt them somewhat. But we think about, okay, they didn't lose Purdy. They lost what we're saying, is one of their biggest pieces, Debo Samuel. That's the piece that hurt them.
And Trent Williams, can't forget Trent Williams as well.
Of course, but I mean, sure, Trent Williams, that's his protection. But if we're really, we look at that, when he lost Debo Samuel, that's the piece that really.
And McCaffrey.
Yeah, well, McCaffrey did end up playing, but
but the one game, yeah.
I mean, he played all of them. He never missed a game.
Oh, that's right, yeah.
But sure, he was injured. So let's put that out to he was a little questionable in that game. But Debo Samuel being out, he's the reason. Obviously, I would compare that to he was the valuable piece on the Niners that they struggled when he was out, and obviously Dak was the valuable piece when he went down. The Cowboys were obviously really going to struggle, and that's why you see you take the player that honestly, if you really think about the MVP case should be whoever if you take that player out of the game, whose performance is gonna struggle the most.
Yeah.
And who's gonna actually make the most impact onto that team, which obviously a lot of times that's not a quarterback, but the MVP voters, they don't see that. That's just quarterback heavy, but
it is a very quarterback heavy award.
It should be.
Yeah, and quick sum up before this, I'm just saying, if Tyreek Hill ends up breaking that record for Megatron's receiving,
he definitely should have a case.
Yeah, but then I would feel he would run away with that.
And I think about that
but
too.
in 16 games, though.
I mean, sure, you could say that, but
that's what everyone wants.
I honestly think, sure, get his respect or whatever, but I think regardless, the position that he's playing right now, he's definitely deserving. But I just got to look back at 2021, the Triple Crown Cooper got, and everything he did. He still didn't even get any consideration, not even an MVP nomination. It makes me think that what Tyreek Hill is going to have nothing to do with.
That actually makes the case a little bit more broad.
Potential. Yes. He makes more of a case, but it's similar. But of course, obviously we're talking about all these teams that are going to be valuable. Let's start wrapping up the playoff picture at the moment, and I mean, I talked about it a lot last week, and I'm gonna keep talking about it every time that we stay even with Packers. That Packers game is going to hurt us a lot in the Rams playoff chances. Obviously, we got a big game that I've been talking about. Obviously, I highlighted it very heavily in this in our preview for Week 14 with the Rams and the Ravens. I definitely think that we have a chance to pull this one out.
It's a very good chance. There's not a great chance, especially with the teams that are coming up like the Packers and the NFC. It's still a lot, and then you losing to that game, that's really going to slim your chances. Like, who knows if you guys finish up with the tie record, they're obviously going to get it because of the head-to-head.
If we look at that, I definitely think there's the head-to-head right now is going to be how the Packers fare at the end of the season, how the Vikings do, and we see the trajectory that Josh Dobbs is looking at right now. I do feel maybe we should be finishing above the Vikings, but it's the prevalence of Jordan Love, how he's doing right now. He does worry me that realistically, I was looking at their schedule. The Packers could definitely run the table right now. It's probably it probably won't happen if we're being realistic, but they don't have that crazy of a schedule. The Rams, we play the Ravens and we play the Niners Week 14, which to think that they could knock us out of the playoffs in Week 18, it's probably one of the worst scenarios that we could have.
Yeah.
But, bouncing back to this Ravens game, I said it a lot. If we can contain Lamar, if we make Lamar play average like he has played a couple times, like he played against the Browns, like a couple of losses throughout this season that he probably has really disappointed. This defense definitely has the capabilities. If we see Darian Kendrick actually play up to his level, and if we see Witherspoon kind of actually bring back the level that he was playing at in the first couple weeks of the season, I definitely think we can shut down OBJ and Zay Flowers.
Yeah, and and obviously speaking of the Rams defense, not only the offense too, but mainly the defense, really a lot of slight improvement, especially in that secondary position. I know Darian Kendrick, he was the cornerback one, and obviously we saw he wasn't fit to be the main cornerback for that position. Obviously he went down to cornerback 3, and I believe you guys' one it's Cody Bryant, or is it yeah, I'm not too familiar with the second.
Kobe Durant.
The Kobe Durant, that's what I'm talking about. Yeah.
We usually keep him a little lower, I believe. But I
was gonna say Yeast, but Yeast is a safety, so.
No, he is.
Yeah, Yeast is a safety because I know it's Durant, Witherspoon, and
I really think
Kendrick.
that Morris should be using him a little more.
Yeah.
But, he's not. No, guys like him and Trey Tomlinson.
That's another one
that really hyped up a lot in the before the season, and he probably hasn't really been getting his chance as much. But he got a pick 6 that ended up getting called back for a penalty in the game against the Browns. He definitely shows the signs that he himself, obviously the nephew of the great LaDainian Tomlinson. He shows a lot of great signs that he at least by the next year he could really bolster this defense. But it just takes time for him to develop into himself.
If you want to really think about it, when the Ravens played the Chargers, towards the second half, the Chargers defense was kind of holding on to the Ravens for the most part.
Very underwhelming Chargers defense.
And the Rams defense is not significantly better, but they're a couple levels above that Chargers defense. They're not necessarily close. I would say like a good amount levels behind them, but the Chargers are always known for having an inconsistent defense. Rams having that inconsistent defense in the beginning of the season, but they stepped it up. And we saw with Lamar, he's missing a lot of big throws towards the fourth quarter, but obviously without inconsistent offense of the Chargers as well. That's why Ravens came away with this one, and we kind of saw towards the end of the fourth, once Zay Flowers was getting going, that pretty much sealed the game. But you are right about that defense. The defense can contain Lamar and for sure OBJ if we want to be realistic here. And then Zay Flowers, who is working his way up to be the main target. Rams, it could be a good game.
You could you look at it's an any given Sunday kind of.
Yeah, any given Sunday.
You see how the Ravens absolutely obliterated the Lions. And the Seahawks, which those were probably some of their statement games of the season. They played insane to their levels in that game, but of course, they played a really subpar game back in in that Chargers game that you just mentioned.
Yeah.
You can definitely think. The Ravens. They which kind of version. Any given Sunday, which type of a Ravens team are you gonna get? These are the kinds of things that you kind of do think about that for coming to move forward. And of course, if we're gonna think about any given Sunday, obviously that you got to bring it back to your Cowboys here.
Yeah,
we already saw that they played. It was a phenomenal game against the Eagles the first time.
Seahawks.
No, the
Eagles.
Eagles
sorry, my fault.
The Eagles game that it was a phenomenal game that you guys ended up playing. you didn't come away with it. Now, of course, we get into this next game. The things that we can see that this game is going to be a big battle, obviously for the NFC East and potential and number one seed implications. I'm expecting the Cowboys to pull away with this one just because of both teams are definitely trending in different directions at their position right now, but you definitely expect a great game nonetheless.
Yeah, because when I'm really looking at this game, in that game against Philadelphia, yes, another hypothetical situation, just we should have come away with that win. Dak Prescott was driving this team. We were getting finally calls on our side with the flags. I was like, you guys got gifted to them. Like, okay, like there missed a lot of missed holding calls on Micah. There's a lot of missed holdings on the Philly defense, PIs. That's really screwed us over. Sure, yes, we had a lot of mistakes. The fourth down to Schoonmaker, which was really short, which was it wasn't a holding when I really looked at it. The ball wasn't even near position, and the ball was catchable. So we should have gotten another chance. And then Dak Prescott going out of bounds. I didn't really hold him on that. It was.
I mean, that's a play of inches.
It was just play because we would have been down 3, and if we drove down and couldn't get anything done, we were on the 30. I know Aubrey would have made that field goal. We would have went into overtime. A lot of hypotheticals, but if we were able to play that well against a Philadelphia team where they were expected to pretty much blow us out.
Actually in a better point back at that.
Yeah.
I believe they were a couple games removed of that loss to the Jets, but they were playing some of their best football this season, which a lot of people talk that about Philly. They haven't really played their best game.
Yeah.
And let's stop. I mean, sure, I said this last week against a team like the Niners, but in a team that hasn't played their best game, now of course this is another game that can they wake it up? Can everyone start firing on all cylinders? Because we look back. I mean, sure, the offense was definitely stale, but let's also talk about that defense. That that D-lane probably is their strong suit. Because as it's been the common case that we talk about every week with the Philly defense, and it's that secondary that can they actually come into their own? Can they start? Can they just come into their own? Because it's been just that's obviously been their weak point, and can we actually what difference can they make? And because obviously going up against one of the scarier wide receiver core in the leagues and
that's kind of what I'm scared about too. DeRon Bland had that big shitter against Seattle, but obviously when he got that pick to help us, I wasn't even excited for that pick. I was like, man, you ain't cooked all game. Sure, you helped us, I'll get you that, but obviously it's just a little stat pad. That kind of not really upset me. I'm just like, whatever, bro. Just lock in, right? And Jordan Lewis is the one that actually came in clutch with the PBUs that I talked about in the fourth in the final drives of the Seahawks. But with Devonta Smith and AJ Brown, it's going to be a bloodfest. Do not get me wrong. It's going to be a pretty good high scoring game if all's well is played out. Maybe we could really hold them if the defense does step up, because the way they played against the Niners, you can kind of we lost to the Niners. Dak's been playing phenomenal football after that, and then after Philly lost to the Niners, you could expect them to bounce back. They're going to play angry. They're going to play mad, especially with a lot of CVD implications. And if we beat Philly, we split the season matchup on 1-on-1, and Philly will realistically need to lose one more game in order for us to be above. We need to win now, but obviously we'll still be helping the Niners.
To this point, you would have the tiebreaker for whatever reason it was. I believe
it's going to be conference wins though, and I believe we do have more conference.
Regardless, I know that
Philly,
Dallas wins. They're on top of the division.
Yeah, without a doubt, if we win out, but coming to the 1 seed, it would realistically have to come out all to the Niners game, and finishing out the rest of the games. What I believe it was the way Dak Prescott has been playing phenomenal football. CeeDee Lamb not having a tiny little bit more resurgence after kind of going quiet the past 3 weeks, but he kind of came up against the Seahawks game, and realistically, it's the offense that's been clicking more. This defense, it's starting to worry me the way we really let Seattle dog walk us on defense when they're a really horrible offensive team for the past couple weeks. But honestly, I'm not too worried, and especially since we're playing at home and we're undefeated at home, and I'm really hoping we keep this record alive.
Those are definitely stats that you look at. Can you keep that going?
Yeah, and if with the 1 seed,
and be the 1 week that you let that change.
Yeah, and if the records if the streak keeps going, we get the 1 seed, home field advantage out playoffs. It could be I want to say guarantee, but it would be a really big advantage, and I really hope it doesn't come back to bite us in the ass.
Back in the prime position to actually get into an NFC championship for the first time in
and that's the bare minimum for this team.
Would think.
Yeah, let alone for Mike McCarthy.
Which, of course, staying on the topic of Mike McCarthy, this is obviously a point that, we have obviously talked about for a good while, and the NFL media itself has been, pretty prevalent. If Mike McCarthy doesn't get into that bare minimum point of getting to the NFC Championship, obviously, even if he doesn't get to the Super Bowl, a lot of people could argue, the time is ticking for his time, and, you got one of the hottest defensive coordinators waiting right in the shadows with Dan Quinn. The argument, do you fire Mike McCarthy to promote Dan Quinn at this point?
Yeah, and it's really been a talk since we got McCarthy in 2020. Obviously, got up to a bad start because of the COVID season and then with Dak Prescott, but obviously kicked it back off next season, the next 2 weeks, 2 years. But honestly, McCarthy's really stepped up in his coaching. Don't get me wrong. I mean, sure, yes, he still has horrible clock management with this timeout situation and in crunch time. Most of his play calling could be questionable, but really after that Chargers game where, I was really questioning a lot, especially after the Niners game as well. After that Chargers game, he really has been stepping up his play calls. He's been more aggressive on fourth down. I believe we've only converted we've converted a good amount. I think we haven't converted about 3 or 4 or maybe less. I'm not too sure because I think at the Seahawks game we didn't convert one either. But regardless, he's aggressive. The play calling is great and it's better than Kellen Moore. Now there's a bunch of curl routes and receivers not getting any separation and then with Schoenheimer as well, with our actual offensive coordinator, with them too, and I believe Dak Prescott calling minuscule plays from a no huddle for most of the time. He's really improved, and that's what I really like to see. At the Philly game, some calls were a little questionable. Do not get me wrong. That should have helped us win the game more, but for the most part, that final drive, play calling was phenomenal. Really phenomenal, especially with the flags we were getting. It just helped us more in the positioning. The play calls were great, getting inside the 5, and then we already talked about all of that. We already saw what happened. I'm still salty about that, but, obviously moving on to this game with Philly on Sunday. But he's just been great, and obviously, I've said this before, the bare minimum for the Dallas Cowboys is just making it past the divisional round. At this point, look, obviously, the whole team's hungry for a Super Bowl. It's almost been 30 years without a Super Bowl. We're really close to that. And, Dak Prescott, I was saying Dak Prescott's not the guy to take this team.
You've been talking about this. But a lot of people like saying it just because, but, realistically, this is probably their best position to win a Super Bowl. They really have. And
I brought that up earlier. Yeah. I brought that up earlier in the season.
That's why I say, obviously, I'd take it from you because, you're my little resident Cowboy fan that I didn't really know. I would say you're a little more reasonable than a lot of that fan base, and
I'm actually one of the most intelligent Cowboys fans you would ever encounter.
I would give you
exactly.
That.
I'm a realist.
Of course, this is. Even myself, I would definitely argue, this is definitely the best team that they've had in a very long time, and if you waste this season, it's going to be a big factor. And obviously, regardless, if I would honestly say if you don't win the Super Bowl, McCarthy got to go. That's, sure, a lot of people say, the argument of,
the coach.
Does he get to the MC Championship? That's one, but for me, the time's wasted long enough. I don't think Jerry can wait that much longer himself. I think the smartest thing would be, regardless, no Super Bowl, McCarthy goes and you get Dan Quinn up.
Yeah, and I will get into that Dan Quinn in a bit right now, but going, let me just bring up Dan Quinn real quick so I can get that Quinn. I would not be mad if Dan Quinn ends up replacing us, even though, he is coaching in Atlanta with the choke. It's because, Dan Quinn,
he gets a bad rep for that.
He just has bad rep for that. But look, don't get me wrong, Dan Quinn, he's a good coach, but he's a better coordinator, better defensive coordinator. And we've said that before with a lot of coaches in the league. They're not fit to be a head coach. They're not fit to run a whole team and see where good they can go. They're better as a coordinator.
I definitely think, okay, sure. For results and for a lot of those things, sure, Dan Quinn, at least to this point, he does have that narrative. He kind of does seem like he's a little better as a coordinator than a coach. But as a leader of men, he was loved in Atlanta. He was great. Honestly,
he set a good presence in Atlanta. That's why everyone loves him.
We always have that argument because of guys like McDaniel, he could not lead men. Yeah. But we see, Dan Quinn, the leading people isn't an issue. It's just sometimes maybe the major decisions that can hamper him. But at the end of the day, his time in Atlanta was definitely a success. Sure, he came just 1 quarter short after that Super Bowl.
Obviously that's really the big thing that gets a lot of bad rep.
That takes over his narrative. But I would definitely say, give him another chance to rewrite that.
That's right, and I wouldn't be upset. They should in 2021 when I believe against the Saints game against the Thursday night when McCarthy was out with I believe COVID or some sort of related illness. Dan Quinn took over the coaching abilities, and obviously it was a little skippy towards the first half, but second half, Dan Quinn really lit that up against the Saints, and he does have a good record against the Saints when coming against the game, and he really coached. Everyone was praising Dan Quinn for that, and it was really nice to see. But honestly, I really wouldn't be upset if Dan Quinn were to get that coaching position.
That's best case scenario, because that's just what I say. Let him rewrite his narrative. Yeah. He's way overlooked just because of that Super Bowl, which let's honestly take that a little more on Matt Ryan and Kyle Shanahan's play calls if we're really going to be honest. But I mean, sure. I mean, let him lead this team that needs this. I would definitely argue they need more of a defensive-minded head coach, and I think that's a great position that would help the Cowboys. That right now you see this is their greatest position for this moment. He could probably extend the longevity of their championship window.
Yeah, and I wouldn't be upset. And actually, speaking of coming back to that to obviously close it out, the Cowboys, this is the team to win it. And I brought it up early in the season. Coming back to that if we were to win it, for sure, it would be this team. I mean, sure, we still had flaws in that. We still have flaws in the secondary with the absence of Trayvon Diggs, with the O-line being a little bit rusty. But realistically, this would be. I don't want to say this would be the year because I don't want to be that Cowboys fan.
Hey, but
in the
sense,
the
kind of guy to say.
Yeah,
you're the one guy that I would say. Go ahead and say.
Yeah, realistic. If we're being realistic, this would be the year for the Cowboys to win it. Because when we're looking at 2021, Dak's coming off his ankle injury. That game against Tampa, which had us robbed once again, second year in a row. I know with your Rams in 2020, with Jalen Ramsey being a little diva because he got cooked by Michael Gallup. He played a great game, Dak Prescott. Obviously, it didn't go our way. And, weeks 1 through 6, I believe, before entering our bye with the Patriots game, he played phenomenal. And then obviously with the calf injury, that's a really when it's down here, not being able to beat good teams. Yeah. So that was obviously another flaw with the defense also being great. 2022, another flaw. We what's the word? We did take teams that we were supposed to beat seriously, and that's what happened a lot of this season as well. Another flaws too. Dak Prescott has the interception narratives. Really, that was another flaw, and then just the offense. Yeah, and Brett Maher, that was really another flaw.
That's something I had to learn this season. But
this season,
I would definitely say this season everything's falling into place.
Yeah,
you definitely have your best position that you've possibly been in. Guys like Stephen A. saying, don't forget it. Something's always gonna happen to the Cowboys.
Yeah.
Hey, I mean, let's just be honest. It hasn't happened yet.
Mm-hmm. And I really hope it doesn't at all.
I mean, hey, you never know. It could come until the last second, but I mean, as things go right now, I mean, the Cowboys are definitely in a great position. Personally, I hate to say, I don't have the craziest hate for the Cowboys, but I wouldn't say.
I mean, Rams and Cowboys fans, we're supposed to hate each other.
Nobody really cares.
Yeah, that's just supposed to be. But
I mean, look. As much as I hate to say it, I definitely do think. I mean, they're up there. I mean, I hate to say it more. The Niners are the ones that really scare me. But this is the point that I really would say. The Cowboys definitely, at least for once, it's warranted to say this is our year. Yeah,
I mean, Dak Prescott playing phenomenal football. Run game kind of clicking again. The offense is really what I'm worried about. CD, the receivers, spraying out the pass game, play calling is great. Defense is really on their heels again. Hopefully they get bounced back, and a competent kicker. Realistically, we just need to compete against those good teams and, hopefully get that trophy. But obviously, still a lot of football to play, and that's really what I'm really looking into, especially with our strength of schedule with the remaining games.
Yeah, and this is going to be the part of the schedule that really tells you. So hopefully we will wait and see if this Cowboys team is actually for real or if it was just beating up on bad teams. But of course, we once again extended this a little more than we probably would have, but I mean, that's okay. That's what we're here for. We're here to just yap about, obviously this game we love, and let's just get this wrapped up. Of course, that does it for our 8th edition of Bean Talk. Finally getting into this groove, and of course, we will take once again a hiatus. Hopefully, we do get to come back into this room, but we will be away from here for just a bit now that the semester is over. So, of course, thank you guys for watching, and we'll hope to see you guys back Sunday morning.